Hello and welcome. Hello and welcome to the next episode of Spiritual Fertility. I am so happy to be back and sitting together with a fairly new friend of mine, somebody that came into my life recently, just in this summer. And so I'm so excited to introduce her to you. And I invite you to sit back and listen with an open heart and mind to what is shared. This is going to be a story of rebirth, of transformation, of spirituality, of taking risks, of new starts, of inner child healing. And the intention that we have for this episode is to keep on your path, to keep evolving, to know that each new mountain that appears is going to keep you on that evolutionary journey, but it is important to dig in and move forward. And that is exactly what my next guest has done. And her name is Amanda Hendrix, and I'm going to let her introduce herself to you. She is a leader. She has started some exciting things in our city. She is a positive influence in our community, and I'm so excited for you to meet her. Amanda, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Allison, for having me. My name's Amanda Hendrix. I have lived in Baltimore for almost 5 years now. I am originally from kind of all over. I was a military kid. But the long story boring, I'm from Alabama. I went to college in Alabama. I lived in Alabama until I was 30. I then moved to Boston for 3 years and then moved to Baltimore near almost 5 years ago, which is crazy to think about. But currently, I am the president and COO of a travel nursing agency. I am the founder of the Baltimore Businesswomen Network, which is a new endeavor of mine and a new community that we're forming here in the city. And I am a avid and lover of travel. I love to travel. It's like my very favorite thing. So when I'm not working really hard or spending time in meditation, I'm usually hopefully traveling and usually near the ocean. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. Is that a good introduction?
Yeah, that's perfect. And we actually met in Baltimore through this awesome community that Amanda started called the Baltimore Business Women. And it's funny because prior to the community even starting, my own energy healer in one of my sessions brought up that there was going to be a group that was in my city that she could see me interacting with women one to one. And once I got invited to the group, I was like, wait a second, this is amazing. And it's because I've been a part of a lot of networking
Yeah.
events and networking groups here in Baltimore. But I love the uniqueness of what you've brought here to bring women together. And it grew really fast. So we connected online for a call, and I just love what you've started there. So tell us a little bit about, first, I'd like to go back and find out what brought you here to Baltimore,
Yeah.
and why did you choose here? And so you can share kind of that transition in your life, because we all have these different like inflection points or transition points that kind of lead us to the next part of our journey. So what brought you here to Baltimore?
Yeah. Well, I was in a relationship prior to living here. And we were living in Alabama at the time and knew that we both wanted to leave Alabama and start somewhere different. And so we went to Boston for a little while and I learned a lot in Boston. I was inspired by a network of women in Boston as well that inspired me to start the Baltimore Businesswomen. Um, I was just in a really unhealthy relationship, to be totally honest, and we weren't good for each other. And I was kind of looking for a different direction. I felt my soul being called to do something different. I wasn't sure what. But because of the networking group, the Boston Businesswomen that I was in, I was inspired by those women to start a side hustle where I was doing social media marketing consulting because I have a marketing background and I started doing it on my own. And the very first client that I signed is the company that I run now. And that company, a couple of the founding members lived in the Baltimore area, and we all work remote. Um, but I came here to visit a couple times because I was working with these people, and it just made sense. It was just kind of like a landing place. I was like, oh, I don't want to go back to Alabama, but this seems cool. I have a few friends in DC, and I know some people in Baltimore, and why not Baltimore? So I kind of came here in 2019 as a respite to figure out where I was going to go next. I was a digital nomad working remotely, working for myself, and I fell in love with how charming the city is, which is, they call it the Charm City for a reason. Um, and yeah, then COVID hit, and I was like, well, I guess I'm going to be here for a minute, for a while. And then after COVID started to die down, during COVID, I wanted to start this group, but it just wasn't the right time because I run a travel nursing agency. So as you can imagine, COVID was wild times for us. We were very, very busy trying to staff a global pandemic, which was a huge responsibility and a calling for us. And it wasn't the right time. And then once COVID started to die down, I was like, okay, I think I'm ready to start this group. I've been wanting to do it. I I had such a great experience in Boston, and I wanted to replicate that for other people because that group and this opportunity that led me here was life changing. My timeline totally shifted. I went on a health and wellness journey, lost a bunch of weight. I just continued to evolve as a person over the last 5 years. And yeah, so it's just kind of crazy how it all happened, but it's not crazy because that's how the universe works, right? It's just our job to pay attention to the signs. I always say uh, to follow the illuminated path. That's like one of my things. Um, Everything we need is around us. We just have to pay attention. So that's what led me here. I know it's kind of a long story, but
No, it's for sure. It's exactly, I love that you say that. Follow the illuminated path.
yeah,
As you were speaking, I was thinking, of course, it is those divine breadcrumbs. I have a good friend who has said that divine breadcrumbs that we follow. And how crazy is it? You're inspired by a group to start a business. Your first client becomes the company that now you are an integral leader for and help to grow, which led you here, which inspired you to start the Baltimore Business Women. I mean, it's so, perspective is really wonderful when we can sit back and be like, okay,
yeah,
that's why that all happened. And it
yeah,
allows us to be co-creators for our own life. So, we do have personal responsibility. Everything's a choice. We make those choices. We move things along. And I'm glad that you followed those nudges to start the group and that it was time to do so, because we were able to meet, and there are also wonderful women in the group, and it's a community that I'm sure will continue to grow for
yeah.
sure.
Yeah, and man, it was just like electric. I put it out there, and the response was overwhelming. And remember the very first event, and I know you were there. We had 50 women at our very first event, and I just remember standing there and everyone looking at me, and I was like, what do I do now? Here we are. I guess we're doing this. But I had like a couple of women come up to me and say things like, it's almost like we've all just been waiting for someone to do this. And I was like, well, sorry guys, sorry it took me so long, but yeah, it's been really cool to see like who's kind of come to me. I've let it just happen organically, but every event it's because a different woman has come to me and says, hey, I want to co-host an event with you, and I kind of let them like, become the master of it and just support them, and I put it out there and promote it, and that's what I love to do is connect people and kind of promote people. So yeah, it's cool.
Especially women coming together to not really for any specific agenda, because that, I mean, like going to an event and like handing out business cards and like that's just, it's connecting on a different level. The events that I've been to, I've had some really great conversations. And one thing that stood out to me when we met, and we ended up having a conversation, but that we connected on, I think immediately, like in your introduction post or mine or something like that, was you talking about some of the tools that you use, such as breath work and journaling. And I was like, oh, yay, she's into spirituality. This is amazing.
Yeah.
So, which is a great transition into what led you. I mean, you've talked about the illuminated path, but really what led you into spirituality, and maybe some of the tools that you've used that have helped you in your healing journey.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's like a little bit of everything, but I think it was talk therapy is where I started. I happened to Google, I was looking for a therapist in Baltimore and I found one and she's incredible. I've been seeing her for 4 years and her website, she talked a lot about acceptance. And that was like her main thing is like her therapy style is to teach people how to accept things and move past them. And I was like, that really spoke to me. And then I went and I met her, and turns out she was very spiritual as well. She's a Christian, and I could talk to her about God, and that was really crucial for me. And she taught me how to really be with myself and I had started with journaling and it took me almost a year of her telling me to start journaling before I did because I didn't really know like what to do. And like I'm an adult and female human, and I'm 30 something years old, and I'm like, I don't know what to write. And I'm actually, pretty good with my words. I've been in sales my whole life. So it was an interesting thing that I had to overcome. But once I started doing it, I was like, oh, this is like, it felt like my soul, I was like talking to myself or I was listening to myself by journaling. Um, and then that led me into meditating. And I didn't quite understand meditating. She wanted me to get into breath work. So there was like this breath work meditation thing and that was here, but like I didn't quite get it like or grasp it. And so I started like Googling meditations and guided meditations and doing some just really basic breath work. And I realized, well, if anything, it's just good for me to just sit still, like just be still. You don't always have to be going and going and going. And I think that's like a part of like people pleasing that I developed as a kid, is like always trying to, make everyone happy or be hyper aware of everyone's emotions around me and but I really needed to learn how to be grounded and rooted in myself, and grounded and rooted to Gaia and the universe and connected spiritually. And it took some time, but really, I think like for that, one of the turning points was I found a meditation guide on TikTok who has now become one of my really good friends. His name is Joey Labossiere. He's out of Canada, and I'm so proud of him, actually. He was just featured in the San Francisco Examiner as a top 10 meditation coaches to watch this year or something. And he's a hypnotherapist, and I found him. He does live meditations on Instagram Live and TikTok Live, and he does them every Sunday night. And I was like, I don't know, something about the way he did it, it made it click. And I was like, oh my God, I understand it. I get it. Like, I understand how to meditate. So once I met him and found him, it unlocked so much because I ended up doing hypnotherapy work with him. And that is really like when you want to talk where we were talking about like climbing one mountain and then looking down and then seeing you're at another one and spiraling up. That's when I started tapping in with meditation hypnotherapy. That's really when my healing started to unfold. So yeah, so that's kind of how it all came about.
Sure, I can really connect with you on I'm a recovering people pleaser as well. And that, I mean, that goes back to childhood, right?
Yeah.
And what what we hear and what we see and what we're taught and what we need to do to gain attention. And I mean, I think there's so many women that are in the same boat, men and women too, but just speaking
Right.
on behalf of women that I speak with and come across, it's like that people pleasing, that seeking outside of validation. What are they going to think of me? And self acceptance. You talked
Yeah.
about acceptance and how important that is, and learning the acceptance that comes with, the journey ahead. And you touched on some your healing modality, right? Hypnotherapy and what that's done for you. We talked a
Yeah.
little bit about some healing that we do through that, and what we talked about earlier. And why don't you kind of lead into a little bit about, because I think this is so important, that inner child healing and what that can reveal to us. So as much or as little as you'd like to share, but tell me
Yeah.
a little bit, or tell our listeners a little bit about your experience with that, and I mean how important it is for sure.
Yeah. I just have to touch on the fact that I may have to pick up my dog because she's getting a little, uh, she wants attention. Speaking of inner child, I have been, I swear, I manifested this dog when I started, after I really like dug into my inner child healing. And I think she came along in my life. I think the universe sent her. God sent her to me, to help me heal my inner child. She's a special dog. She might have to join us, but yeah, so when I found my meditation coach, I found out he was a hypnotherapist, a clinical hypnotherapist, and a really, really good one. And he does group workshops, and they're different. They have like different themes or subjects they focus on. And so, 2 summers ago, not this past summer, but the summer before, I did a group workshop where it was 4 sessions, inner child work, and it was all on Zoom, and there was probably like 5 women. He does men and women, but it just happened to be all women in this group. And it was 4 hypnotherapy sessions. So we did like one a week for 4 weeks, and it was like an hour and a half. And each week we focused on a different age range. And we went into hypnotherapy, which is, if you've ever done clinical hypnotherapy, it's just like a very deep meditative state, and you're tapping into your subconscious and your memories, and it's really, really powerful. And so what it does is he helps you, or if you find whatever hypnotherapist you're working with, but they will essentially help you go back to a certain time in your life when you felt a certain way. And then they help you kind of see it from a different perspective, almost like you take your higher self, back to comfort your inner child in those moments and say, God was there the whole time. You are not alone. I'm here now. And it helps you kind of rewrite some of those patterns and those belief systems that we learned subconsciously as children, and we didn't understand how to process what was going on, whether that would be being around death, or if you were abused, or um, if like, my dad was in the military, my mom was a nurse, so I was left alone a lot, so that affected me. We moved a lot. I was always the new kid. There were certain things that I always knew affected me, but I didn't quite understand how it was affecting me as an adult until I tapped into it. And then I realized, like, oh, well, okay, so that's maybe why I had some unhealthy behaviors as an early adult that led me into an unhealthy relationship. So getting out of that, I really needed to, like, what I realized is I needed to face myself. I needed to face myself and my inner child, and get face to face with her, and sit next to her. And even in my hypnotherapy, like, I could feel myself sitting next to my inner child. Like, that's how palpable and powerful it was. And to be able to just to hug myself and tell her, like, you are safe. I got you. Like, I'm not going anywhere. And that in and of itself was super powerful. And then every week we went a little bit older. So we went from like really small to like young teenager to like young adult. And in those like hypnotherapy sessions, he'll say, let's think of a time when you felt scared, or, think of something that happened recently and think of a time when you were little that it reminded you of, and go back to that moment. And you get to go back and kind of rewrite and take your power back from those moments. And so that was really therapeutic. And um, I think that, like, I thought when I was done with those therapy sessions, I was like, I am good. I think I healed my inner child. Like, it's such a funny, like, spiritual thing. It's like, I think I did it, right? And what I didn't realize is I was just scratching the surface. I had just opened the door. Because I think, like, especially if you go through trauma as an adult, which I have, that trauma almost like compounds on top of your childhood trauma. So you have to peel it all the way back to, like, you were an infant, and so after that summer, for the next, like, year and a half, up until, like, this past summer, honestly, I was just in this raw, vulnerable state where I just kept having memories pop up that I would have to, like recognize and face and walk myself through. Okay, I have the tools to deal with this now, and if I don't deal with this now, it's going to deal with me later. And so, and like, going back to, like, what's going on now, like with the women's network and my company, um I have always known that I've wanted to, like, guide people down their illuminated path, or at least be a light on it. And I've always known that I needed to do work on myself and my inner work, before I could do that. And I've always taken that really seriously and passionately, because I had so many people along my path, like mentors, that really went above and beyond for me. And I, want to do that for other people. Um, but yeah, so that's been my inner child journey. And it's still going. It's still going.
For sure. I mean, there's so many nuggets there that you shared, but I think
Yeah.
it's important for anyone who is on this path, who is called to listen to this and is called to know that you have a higher purpose and that you're here as a way shower for others. I think
Yeah.
there's a part of you that needs to be a seeker, and that part that gets healed. I mean, it's evolutionary. It's ongoing. I mean, you mentioned just when you think you've got it, okay, I did it. That then there's like another aspect that comes up that needs to be healed. I once did this course on reparenting your inner child, because I think it's important to just understand that these things, these wounds, these traumas, these things
Mhm.
that get stored in our subconscious that we push back, that we don't want to see, we don't want to look at, it's important to take that power back, as you mentioned, and be in the driver's seat and not have that, like,
Yeah.
child be driving, those wounds be the driving force of what relationships we choose, how we interact with others, the people pleasing, the seeking, the all of the other things that come into play. But when you're a light worker and you're on that spiritual path and you are following that illuminated path, it's part of the work.
Yeah.
I also think it's important to find support in that journey, because
Mhm.
this is hard stuff to look at.
Really
It
hard.
is really hard to look
Yeah.
at. And but it's that darkness, and it's illuminating that darkness is where the healing, ongoing healing goes. And then it
Totally.
just opens the door. We can't see what's in front of us. We know that we have to go through this first, but you knew you wanted to start this group for many years, but there was work that needed to be done first. I knew I wanted to start this podcast for many years, but there was a lot of work that needed to be done first and will
Yeah.
continue to evolve. So I
Yeah.
think it's fun and exciting that us two women who didn't even know each other, are having these different parallel experiences, and we
Yeah.
get to come down the path together now and
Yeah.
share for others. I also want to talk just briefly, because I was just finding this connection as I'm listening to, like, my higher self, my guides, intuition that's coming through. That inner child work is like spiritual fertility. I mean, it is like that part that is so crucial to our evolution, and I'm so glad we touched on that and that you shared your journey with that. moving forward. So, what are you up to now? What looking ahead? I know we discussed you just came off of like some stressful, couple months and moving forward, but what are you creating for yourself in the future moving forward? It's a new year. You just had a beautiful vision workshop. So, what's part of your vision, Amanda?
That's a great question. Thank you. I have my vision board like right there. Um, you know, I'm not quite, I know, but I don't know. Right now, for me, it's an energy. There's a new energy that's like forming or calling me in, or I'm calling in maybe. And I don't know quite what it is. But I know that there's a shift coming for me. And that may be, personally and professionally, maybe one before the other. I already know that I'm in a shift right now with the Baltimore businesswoman because that's something that's ever evolving and growing. But I honestly, I feel like my partner's coming for me soon. Like I can feel him around, but I just don't know exactly where he is. Um, but as far as like with my spiritual journey, I'm really like not trying to focus so much on like the tangibles. I'm trying to dig more into my relationship with God and my relationship with myself and making sure I'm taking care of myself and paying attention to the illuminated path and um, following that and putting that first above my specific desires, because what I learned in the past was like anytime I went against what was meant for me, it was a miserable journey. Like it was like it didn't work. It was hard. It just made it hard. And I just keep getting this message of it doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be hard anymore. And even though there's hard work, you have to co-create, you have to get your stuff done, you have to take care of yourself. That's hard work. But as far as like things lining up and becoming aligned, that part doesn't have to be hard anymore. It gets to be easy. And so that's kind of where my head's at right now. Even though I do have days where I get really down on myself and feel like, oh, what am I doing? Like, I don't know what to do. I need this, I need that. I'm trying to just keep bringing myself back to just, take care of yourself, pay attention, and God will provide. And that's, yeah. And my spirit guides that you mentioned spirit guides. Can we talk about that for a second? Uh,
Yeah.
I never knew what spirit guides were. I've always like heard of guardian angels, and in my world, they're the same thing. Um, but I tapped into spirit guides more so about a year and a half ago, and it was just at the right time because I really needed to feel like a physical, almost like a physical, palpable, spiritual thing around me, like something, and protection almost. And I still now am trying to call that in more. I think that's like not, it's kind of hard for people who are just now on a spiritual awakening journey to understand what that is and that there's might be entities around you to protect you. But I do think it's worth talking about.
For sure. I mean, I just yesterday I knew I was moving into a situation that was going to be difficult in the work that I do, working with 4 and 5 year olds every day. And I called in. I'm like, Archangel Michael, come in to protect me for this path ahead. And it's brings you peace
Yeah,
knowing that you have guides and you have guidance systems and you have different things that you can call in to protect or call on to for advice, or knowing that that you're moving forward on your path and that you do have protection there. So
yeah,
yeah, super fun, right?
yeah. It is cool. It is cool. We could talk about spirit guides on it's a whole other conversation.
For sure. It is a
Yeah,
whole other conversation.
yeah,
There's some great meditations out there.
yeah,
I have different ones that reveal themselves along
yeah.
the path. in my own spiritual path too. But we talked on a lot of topics today, and I think our intention came through to keep evolving in that journey,
Mhm.
to tap into healing your inner child, to move through, to take risks.
Yeah. Stay curious. Stay curious.
Stay curious. I am curious. Did you happen to do you follow the word of the year? Do you pick a word each
I
year?
do. Yeah. I wrote
What's
it
your
on
word?
my word this year is embody.
Embody.
Yeah. Yeah. My goal with that is to I think when you have a vision and goals, right? It can look a certain way, but it may not end up being that way, right? And really what it is what I was trying to talk to the women about at the workshop is it's really an energy that we're calling in, right? So it's like if you can imagine and envision what you want your life to look like a year from now or 5 years from now, is that with a partner? Is that you're a business owner? It's how does it make you feel? What is the emotion that is in within that? And if you can tap into that emotion right now and feel the appreciation and the gratitude and the high vibrational energy that achieving that or calling that in will bring, if you can feel it now, you can call it in. It's already yours. And so that is for me, that's what embody is. I want to embody this a healthy lifestyle so that I can attract, um, a healthy relationship. I want to embody being a healthy leader so I can attract new opportunities for me and my team or my future teams. And that, kind of, yeah, so embody. What's yours?
Happy.
Okay. Uh,
That it's I happy in career, happy in relationships, in finance, and health, and just being happy. And that comes in line with embody, right? It's that emotion that we embody and bring forth into it. So
yeah, we don't,
happy.
don't live in fear, but we want to live in joy and happiness and appreciation. Like those higher vibrational levels of emotion, it calls in more and it also signals to the universe that you're ready, you know? Yeah.
For
Cool.
sure. Well, I have loved our conversation. Thank you so much for joining and sharing. And I'll make sure to get all of your info and include in the show notes. So you never know who's going to listen to this because
Wow.
podcasts are fun. They exist, they
You'll have
will exist for a long time. Might
you'll
be a
have
travel nurse, might be somebody who's looking to start a group in their town, might
yeah.
be someone who's interested in connecting with you on, you never know, relationship level. I mean, that's the fun of all of this.
Yeah. You should post it in the Baltimore Businesswomen group and share it and there may be some future guests in that group for you. You know?
Yes, I would have loved to attract new guests to
Yeah.
this podcast to align with the message of rebirth and transformation and being open to receiving of fertility and our journeys that we are on as women coming together. So, thank you again so much, Amanda, for sharing. For anybody who's listening to this, please like, subscribe, review, share, all of the above so you can help us to reach more light workers on their spiritual path and on their awakening journey who are looking for tools along the way, guidance, relationships, come together, energy, high vibe, all that fun stuff. Thank you
Thanks,
so much.
Alison.